Okay, so welcome back. We're going to do another podcast. This is a video podcast series. I got Jimmy here with me, Jimmy Alauria. Jimmy, welcome.
Hey Dan, how you doing today?
Yeah, all is good. All is good, man. Hey, we had picked up on this last thing. I want to get right into it. We were talking about hiring techs, really hiring any staff for a shop. It's interesting times right now. We went through a bunch in this first one. And for those of you who did not see that, you want to see number one. We're gonna do lots of podcasts, but this is a hot topic. So, Jim, we talked about a lot of things in this last one. Uh, let's jump straight into it. So, what do you got for us this time?
Well, we're going to talk about, the landscape for automotive technicians has changed a lot. And it's a very recent change. It's not like it's been around for 5 or 10 years. It's been coming for that long, but all of a sudden, I don't know if it was COVID or what changed, but all of a sudden the scarcity of technicians changed quite a lot. And I don't know that it's necessarily a scarcity of technicians as much as it is the fact that the population in general has gone into a little bit more, they're a little more conservative, and they're afraid to move around. So, it seems like there's a huge scarcity of technicians, even though there's really is just as many out there as there were a year ago.
Okay.
So we want to talk a little bit about, that landscape and what shops need to be doing and thinking with, and not just reacting to, the hype and what everybody's talking about and how much you have to pay them or what you can't pay them, things like that.
Sure. Good. Okay. Well, light it up. I want to talk. You put some points forward to me that I thought were very interesting. The fact that costs are going up, labor rate increases. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. I mean, we all know in general, we're seeing costs go up. The consumer is paying more. They're paying more for gas. They're paying more for cars. Used car market. There's used cars right now that are selling for more than they were new.
Hmm.
They're paying more for beef. They're paying more for, I mean, you name it. The consumer knows that inflation has taken hold and they're paying more. The truth is that that's affecting our shop as well. We're paying more for parts. We're paying more for utilities. We're paying more for insurance. And the only way that we're, as a business, going to be able to survive is we have to adjust our pricing based on those costs going up.
Sure.
So finding technicians, hiring technicians, paying technicians is no different. It is a direct cost. And what I mean by direct cost is that for every hour of labor that technician puts into that car, you're having to pay. Now, even if you're paying a technician salary or hourly, their effort, what you're paying them to do, is going towards fixing that car. So it's not overhead per se. It is a direct cost. It's no different than you used to buy a water pump for $100 and now it's 110 or 120. That's the same thing that's happening with the technicians. It used to cost us 25. Now they're costing us 35 or 45 an hour. So those direct costs are affecting the shop, and they're affecting the bottom line. And shops need to adapt the way that they're doing business to the current times. We can't just say, well, I can't afford the master technician that I need. He costs too much. There's no alternative. It's just like if you got a car that's coming in and you have to buy a part for it, you're going to pay what the market bears for that part. You're not,
Sure.
Maybe you can find a used part or something, but that's not the right way to do the job necessarily.
Right.
So you have to adjust your pricing, and we've got to get better at selling our services based on that new price.
Nice. Okay, good. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I think you're spot on. You can't, just like you're not going to not buy a part, you're not going to pay current labor rates. So let's talk about how you look at this. And you did this whole analogy and analysis of, service and how to do it. Can you touch on that?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I hear shop owners all the time that will say, I'm just not willing to pay a technician that much, or I can't afford these guys. They want too much. And they're passing by a really qualified guy that can flag 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And they're getting hung up on what these guys want to make. And you've got to, you really got to take the viewpoint of the technician right now. They know that they're scarce and they know that they're becoming more and more valuable. So put yourself in their shoes. Like, what are you going to do? Obviously, you can't compromise your financial ability to pay them. Like you can't pay a technician $60 an hour in Phoenix, Arizona and remain viable. That's just not going to work. That doesn't mean that that's not true in New York City.
Sure.
Right. So that number of how much you're paying a technician is really relevant to the area that you're coming from. If you're in a more rural area in Minnesota, your high guy might be $25 or $30 an hour. Whereas, you talk to people in New York or New Jersey, they're talking, these guys are making $45, $55 an hour.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that we're really thinking with what's going on with the technician market. How much more are they worth? It's like this, people going crazy last year on is a bad example, but it's true. How much were people willing to pay for a roll of toilet paper last year? Right. It all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, it became scarce. And now, Costco marks up their toilet paper that used to cost, $20. And all of a sudden now it's 25. Why? Why do they charge that much? Do you think it was costing them that much more to get it? Probably not. It's because that's what they could get.
Right.
It became scarce. They raised the price and that's what the market would bear.
Right.
So it's the same thing with auto technicians, right? They know that they're scarce and they are going to demand more money. Now, how does that relate to your shop? Do you just roll over and say, I'm going to pay them whatever they want? Not necessarily. There is some compromise on looking at, this guy wants $45 an hour and I can't afford that because my labor rate's $100 an hour and I can't pay him 45% of my labor rate.
Right.
And that's the truth, right? I mean, that's a high percentage of cost of labor.
Sure.
But at the same time, the owner needs to become a good salesperson about their shop and selling the opportunity. We were just talking with some shop owners the other day, and one of the things that was brought up was that if I pay a technician, some of these guys, what they're asking, I got to pull that money from someplace. Like that might be, I'm pulling it out of marketing, or I'm pulling it out of commissions to other people in the shop, or I'm not able to hire that fourth, fifth, sixth guy that I need because my cost of labor is too high and I can't add that guy. So it becomes a situation of, okay, he wants 45. I'm used to paying 30. How do I get this guy to commit to coming to work for me for a compromise? Maybe 37.50, maybe 42. I don't know. But it's selling your opportunity. And if you have a good shop, meaning you're the shop in the area where the parts guy comes in and says, yeah, everybody's slow. You guys are slammed. If you're that guy, there is opportunity there to sell a technician on the opportunity of, we're always busy.
Right.
It was one of the things that I used to tell technicians that would come in and, back, let's say 10 years ago, they'd come in and say, I want 35 an hour. And our top guy at that point was about $29 an hour. And I would say, you know what? I've hired guys and I've given them $35 an hour, and I made that mistake. And here's what happens. You want $35 an hour because whatever your income demand is, let's say it was $1,000. So he's used to making 30 hours a week because the shop was barely paying him 30 hours a week.
Sure.
That was his comfort zone. That's what he needed to pay his bills. And so basically he looked at his average production, multiplied it by what he needed per hour, and that's where he came up with $35 an hour.
Sure. Right.
You know, and that's where where these technicians get their number from. It's because they've worked for shops that are only paying them. Yeah, a guy comes in, he's making $40 an hour. Okay, well, let me see your pay stubs. Oh, interesting. You're averaging 25 hours a week.
Right.
Oh, so what do you need to pay your bills? About $1,000 a week. Okay, so that's how we got to $40 an hour.
Right.
40 times 25 hours is $1,000.
Right. So it's a great question to ask in the interview process when we're talking about rates and say, hey, good, how many hours are you getting paid right now? And that would actually expose that.
It does. And that's one of the questions that a lot of people fail to ask is just like we have that old joke that says customers lie. Mm-hmm. Potential employees lie.
Sure.
Okay.
Especially
and they're
when it
not
comes to the money.
Yeah. And it's not to be savage or anything like that. They're they're fighting for a better standard of living.
Sure.
So I made $85,000 last year. Okay, good. Let me see your pay stubs because I don't want you to prove that you made 85. I want to see how much production you did. If you're making $35 an hour, I want to just divide that out because that's going to tell me what their real production is. And I don't do that all the time, but I have done that in the past because I wanted to actually see what their production is. Some guys won't even think what I'm doing, but that's actually what I'm doing. I want to see if what they're telling me matches up to what they're asking for.
Gotcha. Okay.
Good.
And then you and I talked about this, the real cost, your real biggest expense is not going to be what you're paying these technicians. What's the real big cost? What's the real biggest expense, Jim?
The biggest expense that you have to look at when you're missing a technician on the floor is what is your shop not making right now because you don't have that technician compared to what you're making without them. Right. So if you were to let's say that you were going to add a technician to your shop, they're busy. Shops are busy right now, Dan. It's not like that there's anybody out there that's not busy. I mean, we're kind of in Arizona, especially right now, it's 110 degrees today. People are keeping their cars longer. We all know that. There's not a lot of used or new cars available to buy. Shops are busy. Okay. So the biggest thing that people fail to look at is that biggest expense. The difference between what you could be making or you should be making and what you are making. So what's the difference of that master technician that's asking for $35 or $40 an hour? If he can flag 40 or 50 hours per week, and your labor rate this is a low labor rate, but if your labor rate's at $100 an hour at 50 hours, right? That's $5,000.
Right.
At 50 hours, that's $5,000. So double that with parts, that's $10,000 a week that technician could be producing for your business. So if you're doing 20,000 or you're doing 30,000 and that guy that wants the 40 an hour could make you an extra $10,000 in sales. Yeah. Is that going to lower your profit margin? Certainly it will if you don't adapt to that new cost. Like I was saying at the beginning, we have to look at the adapting our businesses around the new cost. But that cost, that real expense is not the $40 an hour that the guy's going to get. It's the $10,000 of potential income that your shop is leaving on the table because you don't have that guy in the bay.
Right.
And I hear shops all the time. Oh, we're 2 weeks backed up. That's not something to be proud of.
Yeah, that's not a bragging point right there.
No, that means that you are backlogged with potential income 2 weeks. How much business are you losing because people are calling up and saying, I can't get you in for 2 weeks? It's a funny thing. That's how I got into the diesel business. We're general repair and diesel. And it was people were getting called, they were calling the dealership and they were telling them, yeah, we're 2 or 3 weeks backed up. The independent diesel shops and the dealerships were 2 weeks backed up. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. So I started getting into the diesel business, and we still have a quick turnaround time.
Sure.
I mean, major repairs still take major repair time, but you got to realize, if you're telling customers, new and existing, that you're 2 weeks behind, if they need their car, they're going someplace else.
Right.
So how much is that $40 an hour guy really costing you? Potential new business, existing customers, plus whatever you're leaving on the table every week that's not getting done. That's the expense you got to look at. And I know it's hard to confront, and I know that you think that you're going to lose a bunch of business by raising your prices to cover that new expense. If you're 2 weeks backed up, quite honestly, you probably need to lose some customers. There's probably people in there that you're not charging enough for the service that you provide. And those ones that are going to complain about you raising your labor rate $5 an hour or $10 an hour, let them go someplace else.
Sure.
Because the ideal customer is not looking at your labor rate. That's not what they're looking at. They're looking at value. What do they get for what do they pay?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the question that I'm asking shop owners now. Knowing the scarcity of the automotive technician right now, the top guy, the guy that's going to make you an extra $10,000 a week. Is it easier to raise your rates so that you can afford that guy and not have it affect your bottom line at all, only to increase it what your profit margin is by the increased revenue? Or would it be easier to raise your rates and really focus on servicing the heck out of those customers so that they don't even think about the extra money that they're spending? What is that? I don't know the answer to what you add to make it more valuable, but years ago when the economy crashed, we did not lower our labor rate 1 penny. In fact, we raised it. Back in 2008, 2009, 2010, we were raising our labor rate. But at the same time, we brought somebody on that would pick up and deliver cars, pick up and deliver people, and we washed just about every single car that came through the shop. I worked out a deal with the car wash right down the street. They gave us a discounted rate for buying bulk car washes. And on our test drive, after the car was done, we'd run them through the car wash. And, you know, somebody comes in and spends $2,500 on their car, and they walk back in your waiting room and say, "Thank you for washing my car."
You know what I mean? Is those things which really make the difference, didn't cost you a whole bunch, has a massive impact. I think it goes back to what you did during COVID, during the shutdown and shortly thereafter. The services you were providing, maybe just touch on those again. They weren't for free for you, but the impact it had on your image, on your reputation, and the word of mouth you got from it. I don't even think that was your original purpose. You were just facilitating and making sure your business was open, but maybe just touch on some of those things so some people can get the idea of other things that you have done along those lines.
Yeah. You know, and that's it's a good point. It's just, you got to look at what is the perceived value, you know, like why would they go anywhere else when you've offered, like COVID hit and we've been in business for 46 years. So we have a lot of customers that were freaked out about COVID. and they weren't leaving home. They weren't not leaving their front door, but they still had cars. And what better time than get your car serviced when you don't have anywhere to go? You don't need the car. So we, and a lot of shops did this. This isn't like a bright idea of mine, but it was like add value. So we were picking up and delivering cars left and right. Sometimes we were picking them up 5, 6. I think the farthest we went was like 20 miles to pick a car up for an oil change. Now that was at the height of things, but the thing is that we always complain about not having, customers who are waiting. We want customers who drop their car off so that we have time to inspect them. Then we can call them, go over what we see, what the recommendations. And if they've already are without their car, they're more likely to buy the services that they need than if they're sitting there in the waiting room going, you know what, I've really got an appointment to get to.
Right.
So was it really costing us anything to add that extra service? Not necessarily, because we didn't have them in the waiting room where they're looking at their watch every 10 minutes. We had their car at the shop. They were at home comfortable. They didn't have to leave their house. They were so happy with that service, especially, like I said, especially our older customers. And that was just one point of value that we were adding. We weren't decreasing our labor rate. We weren't, we weren't discounting anything anymore. We were just going a little bit more above and beyond to service the customer. And that's what I'm going to challenge you guys to do, is stop focusing on what the costs are. The costs are the costs. It's like if delivery costs go up in any fashion, we're going to see it on the retail end. So if it costs the grocery store more money to get the groceries to the store, they're going up. It's a direct cost. So they just increase the prices. If it costs a hotel more money to service the hotel rates are going up. If fuel goes higher, we're paying more for airline tickets. It's no different in our business. So look at what it's going to take to get the right guy into your shop, and don't get focused on what he's going to cost you, or she's going to cost you in that matter. Focus on what you can do to make sure that you can get that person because you need them, and then work on what things can you add. How can you add value to your services? Some people don't offer the maximum warranty that they might be able to. There's still a lot of shops out there that are still at 12 months, 12,000 miles, when most of our vendors will offer 3-year, 36,000 miles nationwide. That's an added value. In fact, by survey, and this is a most recent survey that my wife and I just finished doing with our customers, one of the top 3 reasons they come to our shop is our warranty.
Wow.
And we barely ever, now I'm not going to say it never happens, because it happens where people are saying, well, I could get this done cheaper. It does happen. This happens like with every business. But you know what? I know that happens to the guy who's 20, 30% cheaper than me.
Right.
It happens to him too.
Sure.
So it's not like it's the majority. It is the minority. And when I say minority, it's less than 5% of the people that come through the door. Way less than 5%.
Interesting.
If we have 100 cars going through our shop a week, there is no more than 1 or 2 people that are like looking at the invoice and going, that's a little bit high.
Right.
Okay. Compared to what? And of course, we don't ever sell anything to a customer. We don't ever do any work for a customer without approval from them before we do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But get rid of the buyer's remorse by offering so much service that they don't even think to look.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I think this is fantastic information. I didn't realize it was going to go this direction, but boy, it makes a lot of sense. And it ties in so well with solving the real problem. The real problem is you've got potential delivery. The potential delivery, if you just envision your shop, okay, this is what I'm making right now, but with the existing facilities, maybe a couple additional resources, within my reality, what do I think I should be producing a week or a month instead of what I currently am producing a week or a month? Do that number. And it's a real number. It's not some foo-foo number. It's a real number,
Real number.
Okay, good. I'm doing 60. I really think I could be doing 100. I'm doing 100. I really think I could be doing 140. I'm doing 140. I really think I could be doing 150, even if it's that small, $10,000. But that is your lost opportunity within your reality. What is that amount? And that amount right there, do that number, your monthly number, whether it's 10,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 40,000. Do that number times 12. And that's what it's costing you per year. Certainly of that number, there's going to be overhead. There's going to be costs involved and stuff. So, but I think everybody knows their margins, relative margins, and all your fixed costs are covered within your first, X amount. Everything thereafter becomes to a degree, a large percentage of profit. You've got some vacillation in your costs and such, but your rent or your lease or your mortgage is paid. Your payroll doesn't change that much, with the exception of a few. So that's a big number. That's the money that you're losing because you don't have that tech. So why are we bickering over $2 or $3 an hour when it's costing us thousands? It's being penny wise and pound foolish. I think it's a big point.
It really is. And the thing is that I have a good friend of mine who just recently sold his shop, a single location operation. He was doing about $2 million a year. And he was one of the first guys to get me over this idea of, I can't afford this guy at $35 an hour. And he goes, and he said that to me. He's like, why don't you just bump your labor rate up a little bit to cover him?
Done.
That's just too damn simple.
Right. That's too easy.
Just too damn simple of an answer.
Right.
And he got me over that. He's like, you need him. You need this guy. So get over whatever it is that you're hung up on not paying the guy. Give him his $35 an hour. And what's the worst that can happen? And I was thinking, well, the worst that could happen was I'd have to get rid of him, because I couldn't afford him.
Right.
And the truth is that I totally could afford him. And to cover that additional, I think at that time it was about $5 an hour difference that I was paying anybody in my shop. It wasn't a big deal. At 40, at 5 times 40s, it's a couple $100 a
Sure.
week.
Right.
That guy consistently, while he worked for us, he was always a 45 to 55 hour guy. Always. Always. Even when we were slow, he seemed to manage to pull out 45 hours a week.
Which
and
is what a great tech does, right? That's what
a great tech.
Right.
And he was also that guy that would never miss work. Yeah. He was always the first one here. And, he was with us, 5 years. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, it didn't cost us anything. It didn't cost us a penny. We benefited for mutually. It was a mutual benefit.
Sure.
He had a great relationship with us. We had a great relationship with him. And, but it was a real lesson to me in getting over the costs going up. They were going up and they are going up and they are up. And those guys that you're looking for, one of the things that I look for when I'm hiring a technician, the first thing I'm looking for, how long does this guy stay at a shop? Right? That guy who stays 3, 4, 5, 10 years, he might cost you a little bit more, but if you lose that guy, if you lose the guy that's bouncing from shop to shop to shop, how much does it cost your shop? Going back to our example, how much does it cost your shop in sales while you're looking for the next best guy?
Sure.
And that's what we got to look at. It is not just, giving in and paying ridiculous amounts for these technicians. That's not what I'm saying. There is going to be some compromise and there is going to be salesmanship on your end as a shop owner to really sell the opportunity so that you're not overpaying these guys, but just realize that you're in a tug of war contest with finding the right middle ground between paying that guy what he's worth so that he's comfortable with it, right? and the shop can afford it, and not paying them enough or
Right.
paying them too much.
Right. Right. Simple stuff. Simple stuff. Jim, I think I want to close it on that. I mean, this really went a direction I think was super healthy, but I want to leave it at that for this particular one. Jim, we are on part 2 of this. Is there a part 3, or are we kind of done with this? What do you say?
Well, we've got a couple more sections here, Dan.
Do we?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about the recent survey that we did across the country with a few shops, friends of
Right.
mine. I want to talk about that a little bit more.
Are
And
you going to
then,
expose like what the actual survey results were and what you found?
absolutely. I
Okay.
want to share that information because I think it's going to be eye-opening to some people.
Fantastic.
And it's again, we really got to get into communication with these people that we're trying to hire and find out what's really needed and wanted. Because the truth of the matter today is that the guy that gets, if you're lucky enough to sit down with a master technician face to face in your office interviewing them, you got to realize this: they're interviewing you as much as you are interviewing them. And so I want to talk about that because I want to go into ad content and some different ways that we're reaching out to technicians now. And what do you say? How are you going to be any different than the 1,800 shops? I think is what I looked at yesterday on Indeed in my area. 1,800 shops looking for master automotive technicians.
Wow. Okay, good. So in the next one, we can cover survey results, like what's going on inside the head of these techs and how to actually find out what their reality is so we can communicate at their reality. We're going to take up that process of, as much as you're interviewing them, they're interviewing you, and what you need to be looking like, saying, presenting, etc. And then will we be able to see some actual ads, some of the successful ads that you've been running?
Yes, absolutely. I'm more than happy to share, and again, they're ads that I've used over several years, and they are different. And people are like, "You do what?" But I will share with you my ads that I use for technicians, service advisors, customer service reps, bookkeepers. They're different, but they
Nice.
work.
Nice. Love it. Jim, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I'm enjoying it. I don't think I should be enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying it, but I am. And I think it's valuable data. I really look forward to the next one. Thank you again for today.
Thanks, Dan. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.